Hi there, and welcome to my Brain Health Kitchen. I'm Diana Liz, and I'll start with a disclaimer. I am not a chef. I am not a dietitian or a nutritionist. I'm a functional medicine health coach and a brain health coach. And I've been on a journey since 2015 when I was sure I had Alzheimer's. My mother had Alzheimer's. My grandmother before her had Alzheimer's. Two of my uncles had Alzheimer's. And I was sure that I had Alzheimer's too. But it turned out that um, women, menopausal women, can develop ADD. And we run on estrogen, and when our bodies change, we can suddenly find ourselves with ADD, and it can affect our hippocampus. So, for the last 5 years, I've been on a quest to die young as late as I can. So, today I'm going to be demonstrating how we can take ordinary recipes and make them healthier for our brain. Also want to dispel some of the myths. One of the myths is that you have to eat, that it costs a lot of money to eat healthy. And it actually costs a lot of more money to not eat healthy because not eating healthy ends up usually in a chronic illness of some kind. So the salmon is one of the health foods that is high on our list for brain health. And it doesn't have to, I mean, it's ideal if you can go to a fish market and get it hours from being caught. The next thing is having it frozen and then canned. But as it turns out, canned has a lot of nutrients. It still has omega 3, which is what we're after in eating it. And the one thing that you need to make sure of is that it's wild caught. In functional medicine, we use the acronym SMASH. S is for sardines. S is for salmon. M is for mackerel. A is for anchovies. S is for sardines. And H is for herring. And all of these fish are available in affordable prices. So the recipe I'm preparing today is salmon croquettes. And I went off the internet and I got two recipes, just picked them randomly, just to see how you would take a recipe that you would find and how you could make it healthier. So the first ingredient is 2 cans of salmon. And I used to go through the salmon and pick out all the little pieces of cartilage. I don't do that anymore. That's nutrition that's added in. So let me grab a second. So we add the salmon, and I drained it really well and kind of squeezed it to get some of the juice out of it that it's packed in, because we're going to not be adding breadcrumbs. We're going to be adding almond flour, and it doesn't react the same way as panko does. So there are our 2 cans of wild caught salmon. The next ingredient on here is to add a small onion. And here we go. I've chopped it up and I'm going to toss it in. And let's see, this one calls for a clove of garlic. Now, I used to use this. It was something that I loved. I could use it. It's just amazing because it's so easy to clean. And I bought this at the Galleria in Dallas, Texas, at a very fancy store called Williams Sonoma. And I hardly ever use it anymore because what I would do is I would load the garlic in the center little pouch. I would squeeze it and scrape it. And then I would open it and I would scoop out all the fiber and throw it away. Now, why don't I do that anymore? Well, the reason is that when you're pregnant, you eat for two. But when you're wanting to be brain healthy, you eat for 39 trillion plus one. So one of the very important concepts is symbiosis. And there was a shift. In 2008, the National Institute of Health gave millions and millions of dollars to research institutions to find out what were the microbes that lived in our body. And the first number came out and it said there was 100 trillion. Well, since then, the number has been reduced. And we now believe there are 39 trillion microorganisms that live in and on our body. We didn't know anything about these microorganisms because we didn't have the equipment to be able to study them. Now we know that we live in symbiosis, and this is super, super important, because if you get this one concept, you understand that our health is dependent on a large part on the health of our microorganisms. They create neurotransmitters, they create brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is the miracle grow for our brain, and they create BDNF, as it's called, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. They create it in our gut, and through exercise, and we can move it up easier into our brain. So it's really, really important that we eat fiber. So what I do now is I take a knife and I press, and this one is stubborn. There we go. And I remove the little vellum around the garlic, because we don't want to eat this paper-like substance. And I'm going to do two of them because the recipe just calls for one, but I'm going to add in a little extra nutrition. And then I just chop it roughly. And we have known that garlic is a powerful nutrient since the ancient Egypt. So eating garlic is not a new idea. And it's a really, really important addition. And adding fiber to your meals is really important. Adding just a little bit of fiber. Now think about how many 100,000, a million, how many organisms is this garlic going to be able to feed? So there, I've chopped it, and I'm going to put it in. Next we have, this one recipe called for 1 cup of breadcrumbs, and the other one called for half a cup of panko. So I divided it in half, and I came up with 3/4 of a cup. Usually when I substitute flour or breadcrumbs, I do it 1-to-1. So anytime that you have a recipe, however much almond flour that you're replacing, you do it 1-for-1. So there it goes. Now, one recipe called for green peppers, and I eat as little nightshade vegetables as possible. Nightshade vegetables were once upon a time poisonous, and they're no longer poisonous, but some people, it causes inflammation. So that would be tomatoes, potatoes, green peppers. So I'm going to add celery instead. And the reason I'm adding celery is because, once again, we have lots of fiber to feed our microbes. And one recipe called for chives, and chives are really hard to find and they're really expensive. So I'm going to add the ends of green onions. Now, the importance is anytime that you have the opportunity to add color to a recipe, you're making it more nutritional. Oops, I left a little bit. Now, let's see. So now we have, it calls for a large egg. Now, whatever the animals eat that ate whatever it is, that if it's whatever the cow ate, you eat. Whatever the chicken ate, you eat. So it's important that you get pastured eggs. And if you can get some that also had chickens ate flaxseed, that's helpful too, because that increases the omega content. Omega reduces inflammation in the body. So that's one of the reasons why we pay the extra dollars for eggs that have omega content in them. So this is a pastured egg. And of course, if you can get a farmer or someone in your vicinity, I live in a town in West Texas, and my daughter has chickens, so I occasionally get real pastured eggs. So I'm going to add one egg, one pastured egg. Now, yeah, my yoga teacher used to say, eat in front of the cow. Let's see, I've added the chives, pepper. All right, and this recipe calls for 2 tablespoons mayonnaise. Now, I use this mayonnaise to make my plants shine. I take a little bit and I dust them off and they look so beautiful. But whatever you eat that has ingredients, it's your responsibility to read the ingredients. Lots of things are not outlawed and you may or may not want to be eating them. But it's important to make a conscious choice. Like I consciously choose that this, to ingest this for myself, but I consciously choose not to do this. For one thing, if something stays in the refrigerator forever and ever, and it does not disintegrate and rot, then is it going to break down in your body? And how are the microbes going to adjust to it? So this has the very first ingredient is a red flag. It says soybean oil. Soybeans in the United States and most soybeans across the world, primarily the US, are GMO. That means that the plants are sprayed and the plants are genetically engineered to withstand the poison that they're putting to kill the weeds. But remember that we live in symbiosis. So what does it do to the microbes that are in and on and around the plant? So there's 2 here. One is GMO, and it doesn't say that it's non-GMO. And even if it were not GMO, we know that soybean oil is omega-6. And when it contains omega-6, it creates inflammation in our body. And to be healthy, we're trying to reduce inflammation. So no mayonnaise unless you make it yourself, or you find a really, really clean version that doesn't have any omega-6 in it or GMO. So the next thing that it calls for, let's see, is 1 tablespoon of parsley. Now, just look at this color. Isn't it amazing? Every time that you see color, you see nutrition. The greener it is, the healthier it is for you. And in functional medicine, we say eat from the rainbow. So we have parsley for our, and I'm going to toss it in. Now, the next thing it calls for is 1 tablespoon Dijon mustard. And the ingredients in here are organic grain vinegar, water, mustard, organic mustard seed, and salt and organic spices. So there's nothing in this that I don't know what it is. And if I'm going to choose to buy something, I want to know what is in it, and is it something that is organic. So this everything in it is organic and good for me. So here we go, 1 tablespoon. I'll see if I can get it to come out. There we go. Okay, now the next thing is lemon juice and lemon zest. And I like to use real lemon. The fresher that something is, the better. So if I can get local produce, that's the best. If I can get organic produce locally from a store like Whole Foods or Natural Grocers, then that's the next best. And trying to not get things from a jar that have been sanitized, because you lose those microorganisms. So there we go. There's the yellow for our rainbow. And that has the lemon zest and the lemon juice. And this calls for kosher salt. And I prefer not to use kosher salt. I prefer to use Himalayan salt. And the reason that I choose to do this is because the water that I drink is filtered, and it has everything stripped out of it. It's clean water, but we've filtered out not only the bad stuff that we don't want, we have also stripped out some of the good stuff that we do want. So I prefer to use Himalayan salt. It's very pink, as you might be able to see. This is not a great camera, sorry, but it's pink, and the pink is nutrition and it's minerals. So one recipe calls for, let's see, for 1/4 of a teaspoon, and the other one calls for 1/2 teaspoon. So we're going to kind of divide it. There we go. And then the next thing, and pepper is very nutritional. It's black, and black is good. So it calls for 1/4 of a teaspoon. So I'm just going to get a little tiny bit. There we go. Now we have, now this is really, really, really important. There have been a lot of studies done on olive oil, how it helps us with health, whether we should cook with it or not cook with it. Yes, it is good to cook. We can cook with it. No, you shouldn't heat it. Well, the latest science says that we can heat olive oil to 405 degrees without damaging its properties, its nutritional properties. And the University of Madrid and the University of Barcelona, for those of you who might not know, Spain just loves their olives, and there's groves and groves, miles of olive oil trees in northern Spain primarily. So olive oil is one of the most important oils in our diet. It is omega-3, and that is if it's extra virgin, cold pressed olive oil. Olives, after they're pressed, are resold, and they are pressed again. And if it doesn't say virgin, it means that you're getting the secondhand olive oil. In order to squeeze out that oil, they use high pressure, and pressure equals heat, and heat destroys the beneficial benefits that are available to us from the olives. So it needs to be virgin olive oil, and it needs to be cold pressed, because when we apply heat, we especially if they were using high presses, they would be using heat over 405 degrees. So we want cold pressed. Now, the recipe asks us to cook at 425. So do I put olive oil on the salmon croquettes? No. But then I do the next best thing, and I use avocado oil. And I will make the patties, and I will brush them all with avocado oil, because it is designed to take higher heat. So we have it. Olive oil reduces inflammation, and I do not eat as much olive oil as is recommended in the research done in Barcelona. They had a study that was done, and they reversed mild cognitive impairment, and a number of people, their test scores went up, and they ate a liter that is about almost equivalent to a quart per person per week. Now I can eat half of that. And as I do recipes, I will show you how we add olive oil to recipes to make them more nutritional. But this recipe only calls for us to dust and to brush the croquettes, and it will I will use the avocado oil instead. So checking both recipes. Oh, this recipe calls for vegetable oil. There was some research done in 1956 by a scientist named Ancel Keys. And the only thing I learned in statistics in graduate school is if you don't like the numbers, change how you count. And that's exactly what he did. He counted only the results from the populations that defended his point. And he made vegetable oil the good guy, and margarine the good guy, and fat the bad guy. And now, all these years later, we still have a fat-phobic society, and we know that the research was false, and that if you want to be healthy, if you want to have a healthy brain, you need to eat healthy fats. Our brain, the myelination in our brain that creates the white matter in our brain, that creates the speed of communication and the speed of reacting, it's made of cholesterol. So to have a healthy brain, we need to eat healthy fats. Now, in this particular recipe, we've got the omega from the salmon, and we have additional nutrition from the egg. Okay, I'm going to form these and put them in the oven, and I'll be back in just a minute. Well, the salmon croquettes are through baking, and I usually prefer, if possible, to bake instead of fry. And that's another, it's not there. It is possible to fry healthily for brain health, but it's better if you bake. So just to recap what we did today, we talked about smash salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. They are fish, small fish that are low in mercury and high in omega-3. Omega-3 is fights inflammation, reduces inflammation, and omega-6 increases inflammation. So that's why we why we eat the smashed fish. and also look at ingredients. We eat pastured eggs for the same reason. And we add fiber whenever possible to feed the 39 trillion organisms that live in and on our body, that create our health. We live in symbiosis with them. So that's a mutual beneficial existence. And if we take care of them, they take care of us. Purchase organic products when possible and wild caught fish when possible. Extra virgin olive oil is a medicine for us. It reduces inflammation, and eat it as much as you can, even up to a liter a week. Read the ingredients and make conscious decisions about what you choose to consume. I welcome comments, questions, and suggestions, and even a challenge. I have converted over 300 recipes over the past 5 years. I get bored very easily, and so I'm always looking for something different to prepare for dinner, and I'm always taking a recipe and seeing how I can make it healthier for me. And I would welcome a challenge for you if there's a recipe that that you would like to continue to eat, but you would like to make it healthier for you, or if you have any questions about it, I welcome questions. So if you enjoyed this, I hope you will subscribe and recommend it to your friends. I'm Diana Liz, founder of Rejuvenating Lifestyle for Mind, Body, Health, and Happiness, wishing you a life of flourishing.